This episode of Bullet Heaven was made with a copy of the game provided by Shockizm Interactive. Thousands of frames of super smooth animation, ray trace sprites, 5 unique soundtracks, high quality retro sound effects, 6 levels and 2 extra areas, realistic Cyber Penguin simulation technology. If this were on a marketing sign in a store, it would definitely raise an eyebrow or 3. So what do we have here? Well, Super Psy Penguin, of course, a widescreen vertical shooting game from indie outfit Shockizm Interactive. Released on July 31st, 2020, Super Psy Penguin is an independent game that has seemingly flown under the radar of many a shooting game fan, despite a robust set of interesting features. So, how does it fare with its longish list of lofty expectations? Let's take a closer look. From a gameplay standpoint, Super Psy Penguin is a game that doesn't take many risks. However, on the outset of the game, players are given a small amount of cash to outfit their Psy Penguin to take on the galactic demonic scourge. All kinds of offensive, support, and defensive items can be purchased, but the player should always have the magnet and bullet spinner equipped. This will boost the player's fire rate and suck in extra crystals that appear throughout the stage at hand to spend on maintaining and adding power-ups for the next stage. There's a lot of choice for the player here, but these 2 add-ons are essential for any player's run. We also tend to equip both of the Manta Ray add-ons whenever we can, as they're pretty OP and make quick work of most foes, though they have a shorter range than most normal attacks and add-ons. Any of these items will have to be purchased at the start of every stage as well, but will carry over to the extra sub-stages. Bomber elementals are free though, and can be chosen before each stage as well. Players should be careful though, as it is really easy to accidentally skip the add-on phase and skip directly to the next stage unarmed. Outside of using a keyboard to play the game, Super Psy Penguin only offers true analog control when playing on an Xbox-style pad. Players can fine-tune their speed depending on the stick's tilt, but their movement will also be kinda squirrely at maximum. It can be acclimated to, but we really would have liked to be able to use the D-pad. It's unfortunate that the only digital control is through a keyboard, because we just don't like playing shmups on a keyboard. Doing so makes my wrists flare up and my tendons swell. It just kinda sucks. Joy-to-key could probably have been used with a USB pad of any kind though, but I'm okay with an analog stick, so I may do. Thankfully, players have 5 hit points available to them to get through the game, indicated in a gauge in the top left-hand corner of the screen. Getting hit by enemies or their shots will reduce this gauge by 1 segment, and life is not recovered between stages. By default, the A button on an Xbox-style pad will fire the player's equipped weapons. The player's main shot and all special weapon add-ons that were purchased on the outset of the stage will be fired all at once through this one button. There is no option to fire just the main shot or just the special weapons, but who really wants that anyway? Any enemies killed off will drop crystals for players to collect, which help in repurchasing weapons in the next stage. Once again, the magnet add-on is absolutely essential in collecting as many of these as possible throughout the game. Players also have a pair of special attacks that can be used in both a defensive or offensive manner. First up is a bomber attack that does a good job of clearing enemy bullets and damaging enemies within its area of effect. This bomber is triggered with the B button on an Xbox-style pad. It won't clear the whole screen, and new shots can be fired while it's in progress, but it helps nonetheless. The player's bomber stock is indicated in the top left-hand corner of the screen with red circular icons, and a maximum of 5 can be held at once. This bomb stock is also replenished at the start of each stage. This bomber can also be augmented with one of 4 elements at stage start, giving it more area of effect and different behaviors depending on which one is chosen. Then there's the Psy technique known as Phase. When Phase is activated, the Psy Penguin will become invincible for a short period of time, and all shots on the screen will be changed to fruit. These fruit can be collected directly or shot to reveal spendable crystals to be collected for further purchases before the next stage. Up to 5 phases can be stored at once, and once again this stock is replenished at the beginning of each stage. Throughout every level, players will also find destructible orbs that can be shot and destroyed to release a random item. Weapon power-ups, extra bombers, extra Psy, and life recovery can be released, but will change from playthrough to playthrough. It is never a guarantee that players will find what they need from any one sphere, which adds a layer of danger to the game as well as encouraging restraint when it comes to wantonly tossing up bombers and phase all willy-nilly. Super Psy Penguin plays over the course of 6 stages with 4 intermediary mini-stages thrown in for good measure. 2 of these require the player to navigate a dense asteroid field, while the others require players to collect humans drifting through the stage while not shooting to preserve an allied fleet. In both cases, they still end with a somewhat easy mini-boss fight. Super Psy Penguin also features several modes to play as well. There's Easy, which is pretty easy. There's Hard, which adds more enemies and starts players with less cash, but is still kinda easy. There's Infinite, which goes on forever, and a Boss Rush for players to take on the bosses in the game one after another. Both Boss Rush and Infinite unlock when the game is beaten twice, so clearing Normal and Hard will do the trick nicely. Each playthrough of the normal game lasts roughly an hour though, so at least 2 hours is going to be required to unlock everything there is to play here. But after all that, unfortunately, playing the game and beating it twice failed to unlock Boss Rush and Infinite. Whoopsie doodle. But is it fun? Well, yes and no. On the one hand, outside of the squirrely analog controls, the game is competent, and it can get amusingly easy to lay waste to everything in the player's path. But on the other, the stages go on for a very long time, and there's only a moderate challenge rating at best thanks to the upgrades players can totally break the game with. Like, the final stage can allow players to just buy literally all of the upgrades, which are then all equipped, and all fire at the same time. They basically just blow up the whole screen, at all times. It's amusing, but busted. But kind of fun. But also in a there's no point to this final stage at this point kind of way. I guess what I'm getting at here is that Super Psy Penguin's gameplay falls dead center with all of its parts considered, which isn't bad, but also nothing truly special. But also still amusing. You get what I'm saying. Guess what? There's a scoring system here, and it's implemented and affected in kind of interesting ways. In any given stage, players will get points for defeating any enemies they encounter. Super straightforward. At the end of any given stage, the player's score will be modified first with a no-escape multiplier, which is earned by preventing any enemies from leaving the play area unkilled, then by a kill streak multiplier based on how many enemies and destructibles are killed in a row. This can lead to a pretty sizable jump from one stage to the next. If a player ends up losing all of their hit points and chooses to continue though, they will start the beginning of the stage in which they bid it, but their score will be cut in half. This will happen with every continue the player activates, and the higher the score, the more severe the penalty. A local leaderboard will record the player's best exploits, but no online leaderboards exist at this time. It's a really basic way to score, but in the end it's decently solid. Or so I'd like to say. The truth is, on a 1cc run I was able to break the scoring so severely it counter-stopped at negative 2,147,483,648, when it should have been 36,605,585,550 points. Worse still, the negative counterstop failed to register on the leaderboard, as it was not higher, technically, than the 200 points at the bottom. Super Psy Penguin is really something when it comes to its presentation. Whether it be the visuals, the sound, or the bizarre plot, there's nothing quite like it out there, for better or for worse. So let's talk visuals. True to its word, Super Psy Penguin features all kinds of 2D sprites derived from ray-traced 3D models. There's all kinds of demons to dispatch, many of which feature smooth yet stiff animation cycles. It's somehow both generic and unique, and it can often look pretty bizarre. I will concede though that these space fruit look absurdly good. The backgrounds aren't too bad here though. There is an option to gray out the backdrop to, maybe enhance the visibility. We kind of prefer the gray out option to be turned off though. Still, it's nicer to have the option, and honestly the visibility in the game is more or less the same whether it's active or not. This may be a bit of a crass observation, but it's one that definitely merits a mention. There are a lot of boobs in this game. Demon boobs, mermaid boobs, shopkeep boobs. Thankfully, no spider boobs. Many of the larger enemies players will square off against are fairly well endowed, almost to the point of distraction and not in an especially attractive way. This is somehow taken a step further with how some of the bosses talk smutty to the player. I couldn't possibly apply the right adjectives to properly describe this, so I'll let this boss do the talking. Meanwhile, other bosses have some pretty gnarly dialogue as well, which falls heavily in the creepy category. While we're on the topic of sound, the effects themselves are, in fact, on the rather generic side, but there's nothing especially offensive about any of the core effects used. One of the more interesting aspects to Super Psy Penguin is the ability to pick and choose the soundtrack style with which to play the game. Heavy metal, drum and bass, synthwave, classical, and 8-bit soundtracks are available to suit the needs of most players. As it is, some work better than others, but offers a generally inoffensive soundscape with which to take Super Psy Penguin on. If new soundtracks are added in the future though, we definitely want a solid country music pack, and maybe an a cappella beatboxing combo. Maybe ragtime. Everyone loves ragtime. Then there's the plot, which, let's be honest, is the most ironic of solid gold. Nah, I take that back. This is completely unironic. The Queen of England herself has tasked Psy Penguin with the salvation of mankind, and it's up to the player to deliver. The scene is, of course, set with some really unsettling portraits which 100% match the tone of the game. Rounding out the presentation is a very simple menu system that allows players to navigate to various game modes, control options, local leaderboards, and these glorious credits. So, how does Super Psy Penguin stack up? Let's take a look. The true analog control is a little slippery on the outset here, but players should be able to acclimate fairly quickly. It's workable. Even on hard, players can completely break the game by loading up their Penguin with like every weapon, so long as they have the cash to do so, which they can get with a very cheap enhancement. Between easy, hard, infinity, and boss rush, only a few hours is required to see everything Super Psy Penguin has to offer, with very little incentive to return. The 2D visuals here are smooth but kind of dull. It still works though, even with the game's admittedly dull, generic visual presentation. That somehow still has unique personality. It's complicated. The music tracks here are varied, with 5 soundtracks to choose from, but not many standout tracks exist between them all. There should be an option for national anthems. Okay, maybe not, I'm just kidding. While the gameplay is playable, the shop aspects are basic and abusable, while the scoring system is a bit too simple. Not that we're really complaining, we like overpowering the hell out of our player ships as much as anyone else. Okay, so this review may have been a bit on the sarcastic side, but to be honest, Super Psy Penguin is a bit better than I anticipated on the outset. But it also isn't an especially complicated game, and it has some very questionable issues. It sets out to do a thing, and it succeeds on a basic level at doing that thing, with the thing in question being a playable shoot-'em-up with bizarre pre-rendered visuals and a wide range of soundtracks to choose from. But even on hard, it's easy to exploit, and its staying power may not be especially great, especially since it's more of a bizarre audiovisual curiosity than a game with meaty, satisfying mechanics, both in terms of gameplay and scoring. And that's okay, because sometimes we like playing a game that doesn't require a doctorate degree in game mechanics and scoring. At the very least, it can be played from beginning to end without any especially egregious faults. Well, except the lack of D-pad control, the broken negative score counter stop, and the seemingly busted unlock conditions. Thankfully, Shockizm is onto and now in the process of identifying and fixing the issues we found. So long as these fixes succeed, and when all is said and done, Super Psy Penguin should weigh in at a modest 3 out of 5. However, we still need to be objective with the current state it's in, and it falls in at 2.75 out of 5. Which is still just slightly above average. You can get a copy of Super Psy Penguin on Steam for about $10 US. Well, that's kind of a shame because I do kind of like the core game here, flaws and all. If the scoring and unlock features could be fixed, this is an easy 3, modest though that may be. If you thought that was something, just wait until we dive into Freedom Finger. I have a feeling that YouTube is going to have a field day with a lot of the things we're going to see in episode 287 of Bullet Heaven. Then, it's on to one of the more unique episodes the series has ever seen, the Darius Cosmic Collection arcade and console releases from Strictly Limited Games. See you all in the next episode.